again to our podcast, Decoding Gaming Law. I'm your host, Franklin, Head of Legal at Video Malta. And today we have a winner, Martina Galea, the winner of the SiGMA essay competition. Martina is studying law at the University of Malta, and she also happens to be my intern at Video Malta. So first of all, Martina, congratulations on winning this essay competition. You won an entry ticket to SiGMA Malta and also an all-expenses trip to SiGMA Europe, Central Europe. So well done once again. But the purpose of having you here is to also go over the article that you wrote, which is a very interesting piece where you explore AI and the criminal responsibility lodged with AI. So Martina, thank you for being here. It's a real privilege. How are you feeling? I'm sure you're a bit excited and happy as well.
Yes, excitement and happiness mixture.
Of both.
Yes, best explains it.
That's very good.
Thank you for having me here and for the great introduction.
My pleasure.
I'm happy to be here and to further explain my article.
That's very good. So we're going to jump right in. And so as I said, I read your article. I found it extremely interesting, and perhaps sort of even now you have your dissertation to work on, a topic which will attract a lot of interest, especially in the digital world, in the crypto world, in the gaming world, where AI is being used constantly. So the first question, something which struck during in the article, is your recommendation of having an AI ethical review board. So what is this? What do you have in mind? And what are the competencies of the board? And how do you think it would help AI service providers in having an AI ethical review board?
So the AI ethical review board, I actually got the idea after reading an article from the SiGMA magazine, actually. It was by Dr. Kasra.
Okay.
And I found it very interesting. He explained that the board would assess AI's capabilities and the sector. I personally would go a step further and would say that the AI ethical review board would be sort of maybe a government agency where operators or anybody who would like to make professional use of AI would submit sort of an application or maybe a proposal of what the AI may do or cannot do.
Like a licensing regime or notification to have more supervision as to the use of AI.
Exactly. Even it would also set sort of a baseline of what is acceptable or what is not accepted by the review board, and it would keep a standard level across all of the operators.
Very interesting. And yes, I tend to agree with that. I mean, licensing, especially of a new technology such as AI and sort of a technology which can, at the end of the day, be abused of, licensing is something that to keep checks and balances. That's something I align with as well. Now let's move on to the liability of AI. Something which is very interesting that you've written on in your essay is that can AI be held accountable for its actions or recommendations? So on liability, you reject AI personhood and lean on corporate criminal liability and veil lifting. So can you explain a bit more what you have in mind and what threshold of knew or ought to have known proves managerial culpability in practice?
So till now, at least what I believe as of today, AI is not capable of forming intent till now.
Okay.
So it cannot actually truly act on its own. So in that case, of course, persons need to surveillance it or supervise it.
Or put parameters, for example.
Exactly. So it's always important to know that a person should always be held liable in this case, since we are the only beings capable of intent.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of ought to have known, nothing is ever 100% fail-safe or fail-proof. So it's sort of common knowledge that if you have a technology, it may malfunction or something may go wrong, especially with AI, which always gathers data. You never know what kind of data it's actually using. So
ultimately, we're sort of saying, okay, AI can never be held criminally responsible or liable in its own right. There's always a person behind it, an individual, a natural person who is giving the AI instructions or parameters as how to act.
Yes, exactly. In the case of ought to have known, though, of course, there's always that something may go wrong. So there's always that baseline that whoever is handling AI already knows that there's a possibility of something going wrong. Normally, though, the main person who would fall under the ought to have known would be the person directly handling the AI or the data being used from that AI. So in this case, it depends on how many monitors there would be. By monitors, I mean people handling the data. So in this case, for example, you have a researcher or data analyst in case of betting sectors, for example, who's handling the data being given by AI. In that case, the data handler would be the main person who should know that AI may give him maybe false data or
ought to have known.
Exactly. In that case, the data analyst would ideally have a supervisor or manager who then would be able to supervise, of course, what's going on.
Dual control and 4i principle, really and truly.
Exactly.
That's quite an interesting stance to it, and I do believe I am in agreement with you that sort of no, AI cannot have its own right to be held personally accountable and criminally liable. Martina, we'll have one final question because time really flew by, as it does. So what's one actionable step a Maltese operator would take to align with your recommendations? So, for example, we already have the AI Act in place, but as a sort of proactive approach, what should an operator intending on using AI would use? For example, there are some recommendations at EU level to make code of ethics for AI use within an organization, or perform risk assessments on AI being deployed. So what is your recommendation in that respect?
So in this case, I would emphasize a lot use AI to assist rather than just employ AI. So instead of using AI instead of an employee, use AI as a tool for work. So you would have your employees making use of the data, maybe gathered from the AI, and then would continue working from it. Don't just employ AI the same way you would employ a human.
So another question in relation to your essay, and this time I'm going to be moving on to high-risk scenarios, because due to the fact that AI can be considered as high risk in certain cases. So high-risk use cases shouldn't run fully autonomously, you say, and so where's the line between assistive AI and autonomous AI in betting algorithms? And can you give us a bit of an example or a boundary case on this?
So, in general, I believe that AI should always be used as an instrument or a tool to help the person in their work. I don't believe that it should be left alone to operate and decide on its own in that case, because you would have a greater risk of it acting unpredictably. So that's why I emphasize a lot the assist. Now, the assist autonomous line is basically how it is being used. So in the case of sports betting, the betting sector, for example, AI in the assistive way can gather the data and reports maybe the suspicious or flagged bets maybe to a data analyst. or a risk analyst, sorry. And then that risk analyst can then check and investigate the cases and would then decide whether to further act upon the case or decide further.
Exactly.
In the case of autonomous, then the AI would be left alone, and apart from flagging the cases, it would also be able to decide or maybe just suspend the customer's account
activity,
exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So, which may not always be the case that they would have done something wrong. Maybe it would just be misread data. So in that case, when it's controlled by a human, or at least overlooked by another person, it would be much safer even for the customer as well.
Yes, and I think this is why it's important to have risk assessments of AI and risk classification, which is also mandated by the AI Act. In scenarios, as you rightly said, in scenarios where there's low risk, the AI can be autonomous and does not require supervision. Whereas in high-risk scenarios, you are saying that sort of you should apply an assistive approach and not let AI do the whole thing on its own, which is, in my opinion, sort of a very reasonable approach and in line with the AI Act as well.
Exactly.
So we're relying on that. Thank you, Martina. So I have another question. Strongest counter-argument to your stance, and how do you steel man it? I mean, how do you make it more robust? Example, audits, stifle innovation, or easy to game?
All right. So, in fact, I have had many people till now asking me, which made me think even further and further strengthen my argument, actually. So, I'm really thankful for those questions. There were mainly three main questions, counter-arguments to what's my article. The first one, most notably being, how can AI act illegally when it would actually be programmed with bounds?
Exactly.
Even when it's even prompted by humans to act illegally, it normally tells that person that it cannot act that way. The main response to this is that you don't know how AI is going to act sometimes. With the data that it gathers, it's always improving itself, but there's always that data which may cause a glitch in the AI or maybe make that AI act malfunction.
Exactly, and it's also according how the prompts are being done. So, for example, if you give it a prompt and then AI responds, okay, this is unethical or illegal, I cannot answer, because if I answer, I may be sort of considered as aiding and abetting or acting as an accomplice to an illegal activity. So, but then you change your prompt, and then you wiggle through. So there's always a kind of loophole in this kind of technology. And as you said, sort of it is machine learning. It's learning from previous questions, previous prompts. So at the end of the day, I mean, if you know, a natural person has the intention of using AI for something malicious, it will. You know, it will remove the boundaries, it will remove any parameters, and it can, really and truly. So just going back to you mentioned you had more counter-arguments, so sorry, I took over.
That's all right. The other counter-argument, which is mainly mentioned as well, is that it acts as a barrier to innovation. Like, developers can't really try, or operators can't really try and use new AI and technologies, especially if there would be, for example, the AI review boards.
Yeah.
So it would always be in like the cycle, always trying to improve. But in that case, I say it's better to have a well-baked cake and then layered over it another well-baked cake rather than having it half-baked.
Exactly.
The cake would topple over in that case.
Yes.
So
interesting analogy.
Yes. In this case, it's better to have an AI which is almost fail-safe, rather with all of the boundaries and obligations set in place, rather than building over that AI, and it would be even riskier to use it.
Yeah.
So in that case, it would be it's best to pass all of the tests and then improve it. Even it would even improve the quality of the AI, I believe, if you always continue fixing it here and there.
Exactly.
It's really good.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Martina, for being here and giving us and explaining your winning essay piece. It's, as I said, it's very, very interesting. And as I emphasized, you should pursue it in your dissertation. And I'm sure the audience are going to be, and the listeners are going to enjoy listening to this podcast. Thank you very much once again, and we'll hear from you very soon.